All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to be talking about missed opportunities today, right? And as you probably know yourself, it gets too crazy sometimes when you're on the floors, doing the floors themselves, but also having to run the business. And if you're running ads, as you know, those leads are coming in, and sometimes it's hard to manage all of that. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Essentially, what I call the one-man band trap. And this is exactly why you really good contractors, guys that are really good at laying floors, even some of you metallic guys are really next level, super skilled, but you're still going to get stuck in business because those are two different skill sets. Business and pouring a floor, two different skill sets. So, right? So imagine that you just wrapped up a long day of grinding concrete and laying down all of that epoxy, right? Your knees are hurting, your back's toast. And while you were busy making that floor perfect, your phone was just blowing up in the background, right? And so when you're getting up off of that floor, 7 p.m. on a Thursday, there's a ton of missed calls in your phone or in your CRM, a bunch of unread messages, and then a ton of quote requests that had been stacking up like dirty dishes, right? And instead of heading home to unwind or to spend time with your kids, you're clocking in for shift number 2, where you're going to be calling back leads, chasing down quotes, and trying to keep the wheels on the bus, right? Does that sound about right? Well, here's the truth that most coaches, gurus, marketing agencies, whatever, what they won't tell you. What I will tell you, though, is that you can be the best installer in town with flawless floors, killer reviews, and customers raving about your work and still be broke. You could still be stuck, still be grinding harder than ever just to keep the doors open, keep the wheels turning, keep the floors going, keep the money coming in, right? And why is that? Because talent does not build a business. Like I said, those are two different skill sets. But what does build a business is systems. And if you're the one that's chasing every single lead, quoting every single job, scheduling every single appointment, and laying down every single floor, then the only thing that you've really built for yourself is a job, right? You have to do all this stuff in your business and it owns you. It can't work without you. You have to be there. You're almost enslaved to it, right? It owns you. And the longer that you stay that one man band, the harder that this ceiling keeps hitting you. You're going to keep hitting that ceiling and just keep hitting it harder and harder. And this solution is not more hustle. It's not more leads either. That's a different story, but you got the amount of guys that talk to me about getting better quality leads. The solution is really not more leads or more hustle. It's stepping out of that technician role and into the seat of a CEO. Because if your business only really works when you do, then you're not free. It's not a business really. It's a job and you're trapped in that job, right? And so at the end of all of that, is that being a great installer is just not enough. Your craftsmanship is not the problem. You might be laying down showroom quality epoxy floors that homeowners are even bragging about and other contractors envy. And your talent gets you this far. It's your talent that gets you there, right? But talent alone will not take you anywhere that you really want to go. That's not, think about how, I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with music, but there's a ton of talented people in the music industry. And that does not mean that they're going to go where they want to go. That doesn't mean they're going to go on tour. That doesn't mean they're going to be playing sold out shows. It's not how that world works. It's also not how it works in the epoxy industry. Because, like I've said a few times now, being a great installer is not the same as being a great business owner, right? And we've been sold this lie, just like those musicians have, that if we work hard and if we master our craft, that success is just going to naturally follow. But ask yourself, how many less skilled competitors are out there that are landing big contracts, scaling their companies, and growing while you're stuck, wondering why that job didn't come your way with all of the stuff that you got, all of the stuff that you... It's because it's not about who lays the best floor. It's about who has the best system in their business. The guys with average skills, but a dialed in sales and follow-up process will beat the sales wizard with no system every single time. Michael Gerber, you can look this guy up, but he nailed it. He said, if your business depends on you, you don't have a business, you have a job. And I've mentioned that, but I don't want to take credit for that. Someone way smarter than me came up with that, right? But I will go a step further. If your calendar stays full because you're the one that's chasing every single lead, you're answering every single call, and you're sending every single quote, then, like I said, you don't own a business. The business actually owns you. And your skill set has made you a valuable technician, you were an amazing, most of the guys that I talked to were doing really good working for somebody else. And then they get the idea to go and work on their own. And it's that skill set that makes you a good technician. Your boss really respected you. And then that's what kind of leads you to getting that idea. But that skill set of being that makes you a good technician is not going to make you free as a business owner. And the freedom that you get from running your business and being able to scale your business, have that income and step away is what the game changer is, right? That's where you get that freedom to choose the jobs that you want, the freedom to charge what you're actually worth, and the freedom to step away from the tools and grinding without the whole system and business just collapsing, right? So here's what I've learned working with the epoxy contractors and who are scaling from being a business that was barely scraping by, doing just a couple jobs a month, to 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100K a month. They didn't work harder. They didn't get more leads. There wasn't a shift in how many leads they were really getting, but they stopped being the bottleneck in the business. They stopped chasing everything and acting like they could handle everything and acting like that was going to be fine, right? They shifted from doing all of the work to designing how the work gets done and who's going to do that work. They installed systems in their business that actually book jobs automatically, which is some of what we'll talk about. They also built sales processes that have nurtured leads before they ever even picked up the phone to speak to that person. Or sometimes they don't even pick up the phone. They just go straight to an on-site inspection and send them a final quote, go from there. But that sales process is actually taking care of that before the owner of these companies even talks to them, right? And then they've positioned themselves as a premium choice by having an updated website, ton of Google reviews. And when the market sees all of this, they actually respond. And that's because if your mindset says, I do it best, so I have to do it all, your growth is ultimately capped out at the limits of your own time and your energy, right? And that ceiling, it's a low one. It's a really low ceiling. You can only do, most guys I see can, if they're doing really good, they can max out at about a very inconsistent 20K. Not super solid, right? The real win is not just being the best person at epoxy. The real win is actually building a business that runs, whether you're on site, whether you're pouring the floors or not, right? That's the dream, at least. Your craftsmanship, your amazing skills, all of that, that got the business started for you. Like I said, a lot of guys leave because of that skill set, and you can go and start your own business, but leadership, systems, and smart automation, that's what it actually takes to get to the next level as a business owner and to start operating as a CEO, right? Why are you still stuck on the hamster wheel? It comes down to your mindset, and that being in that craftsman mindset sounds like, well, if you want it done right, you've got to do it yourself. It's all about doing the work and making sure that the work gets done, the hands-on, the labor, the grind. And you measure your worth by how many square feet that you were able to coat today, right? How hard you hustled. But here's the problem with that. When you're doing that, like I said, you're going to always be the bottleneck, because when your business depends on your two hands, it just limits the amount of time and energy that can even go into into doing floors. You can only be on one floor. And if you've got 20 hands working with you, how many floors could you actually do in one day, right? It's like sometimes these things seem common sense, but sometimes it's not so common sense to actually deploy all of it, right? So then what do we flip this to? The CEO mindset, it's asking a different question. It says, how can I get this done without me being the one that's having to do it, right? The CEO still cares about quality, but they stop equating their labor with success. Instead, they focus on building systems that handle the follow-ups, initiating processes that keep the jobs flowing even when they're off of the tools, and measuring success by the amount of booked estimates, booked jobs, happy customers, and growing margins, not by how many hours they worked, right? So said that here's the brutal truth. The craftsman is always reacting to things. They're putting out the fires, chasing leads, calling leads, playing catch up. And the CEO is spending their time, at least some of their time, designing, building a machine that actually prevents the fires and keeps your pipeline full, right? The craftsman says, I don't have time to plan or market. I'm just too busy working. I don't have time to call these leads back. I'm too busy doing floors. The CEO says, I'll build a system so I'm not the one that's stuck doing it all and I can actually grow. So again, shifting to the CEO seat does not mean that you stop caring about your floors or the quality of your floors. It just means that you start figuring out how to scale that same quality without being the one that's having to get out there and grind every slab, pour every floor, right? You're not trying to step away from control. You're stepping into what real control looks like. You're trading the question, what do I have to get done today for? What results need to happen? And how does the business get them done? It might feel really weird at first. You've probably worn that installer hat for a really long time. But if you want more than just a job, and if you want a business that grows while you sleep, not just when you're the one that's grinding the floor, then this is the shift. This is the only way out of the one-man band trap. So what are 6 signs that you're still trapped in the business itself, in the business operations, and that you're not running it? This is how you'll know. If any of these are hitting home, it's ultimately time for a gut check. Your business grinds to a halt the second that you step away. What happens if you take a day off? Just the phone goes unanswered, quotes sit, not getting sent, leads get cold, and that's because you're the engine, and without you, nothing is moving, right? Maybe another symptom is that you haven't had a real vacation in years. Forget 2 weeks off. You can't even sneak away for a long weekend without the whole thing falling apart, right? Every single break turns into checking emails between bites of dinners, between the hotel stays and the amusement parks. And every single trip that you take turns into you just answering answering phone calls in the hotel parking lot, answering phone calls in the Ubers, right? Another sign is that you're always behind on things. You're all on the job all day, and then you're catching up on paperwork, leads, follow-ups all night, right? Quotes, emails, and follow-ups, they're just piling up while you're out there grinding concrete and taking care of the few guys that you might have hired at this point, but you're not actually running the business. You're just barely holding it together, right? Or opportunities are just slipping through your fingers. Your phone ends up going quiet because you've been too busy to do your marketing, or maybe leads are coming in, but you're too late to the follow-up, so they're just moving on. You're missing your chance to actually grow your business, and it's not because your work's not good, right? It's just because you can't keep up because you don't have that system. Or maybe you're doing jobs that the software or somebody else could very easily handle. You're running to Home Depot, you're chasing down payments, and you're replying to basic inquiry emails at midnight. And it's not because you love to do those things, right? But it's because there's no system in place to take that stuff off of your plate. And it's super easy to, send somebody to run Home Depot, and you can also automate your payment collection. Very simple stuff. So what's the last sign? Is that you can't sleep because you don't trust anyone else to do the work right. Now, installing the product itself, I totally understand, but at the very least, can you hire someone to grind? Can you hire somebody to handle your back end office stuff? If you keep your hands involved on every single job, then you run into these problems. You're going to burn out. You're going to miss things. You're going to miss leads. You're going to have problems with the floors. You're going to have problems with the guys that you're trying to hire, or you're just on site. You're in the trenches and you're trying to be everywhere at once, right? This installer, the estimator, the scheduler, the salesperson. And meanwhile, all of the business stuff, the follow-ups, the closing, the growth stuff, that stays stuck in neutral. You're not really doing anything with that. And if any of that sounds like you, I just want to say good. It means that you're probably waking up to the problem that you're having, right? Because this is not about working harder. It's about fixing the machine that you're trapped inside right now, right? And the only way to fix it is to stop being the machine, start building one. And let's talk about how you do that, right? So I get it. You might be thinking, yeah, I'm thin already, but I'm saving money by not hiring any help or by paying for software, and I can handle it. But here's what you're not seeing. Doing it all yourself isn't really actually saving you a dime, and it's actually costing you a lot more than you realize. First, when it's just you, your income is actually capped because there's only so many hours in your day, and there's only so many jobs that your two hands can handle, right? And while you're buried in one project, 2 or 3 others slip away to the guys who actually call back, who got the email and reply. And that's where the real money is actually walking out of the door. The second thing is that the grind itself is actually wrecking your health. Long days, late nights, stress on full blast. You're not just risking burnout, you're actually risking mistakes in your business. Sloppy installs, missteps, poor judgment when you're running on fumes. How sharp are you with the grinder and mixing ratios when you're dead tired? You know the answer, right? Third, your relationships are also paying the price. How many dinners have you missed? How many weekends eaten up by quote follow-ups or urgent client calls or problems that you're running into on a project, right? You're not building a business right now. You're building resentment. And that's resentments with your family, right? And eventually it really starts to bleed into the that you used to love. Your family, your life, all around, right? And fourth, your reputation is on the line. When you stretch this are 1000% going to slip. You're going to forget to send invoices. You're going to be showing up late because you're just juggling too much, or you're missing follow-up calls that would have actually closed the deal for you. And to you, it's just one more email, but to the client, they don't care. So that's how good reviews turn into bad ones. That's how trust dies. And it's also how future jobs die too. And then fifth, your competition is actually pulling ahead while you're just sitting there stuck in survival mode. The guys who aren't glued to every single task that they have going on, they're marketing, they're building systems, they're following up faster, they're growing while you're just trying to keep up. And no, they're definitely not more talented than you. They might not even be able to do metallics, right? They're just not trying to be the one-man army. They're doing it all by yourself. Like I said, it's not saving you. It's not saving anyone money. It's costing you revenue that you'll never get back. It's costing you time that you can't replace. And it's costing you health and relationships that you can't afford to lose, right? And you're the one that's paying for the chaos with your body, with your sanity, and ultimately with your business. And the price of staying stuck is way higher than the price of fixing the problem, right? The good news is that fixing it is 100% doable. So let me show you what that looks like. Why and what you're going to move into, what we'll move into here is systems, and why systems is not just a corporate buzzword. It's actually the actual way out for you. You've probably heard this word systems from being around by business coaches and gurus. It sounds fancy. It sounds corporate. It sounds like something for a corporate meeting, right? Not for epoxy contractors. But here's the truth. A system is just the way you do things on purpose, the same way every time. It's the difference between winging it and knowing that every part of your business runs smooth, even if you're not the one that's doing it. Think about McDonald's for a second, right? There's a bunch of teenagers working for McDonald's. Some of them haven't even graduated high school, right? They're the ones in there flipping burgers, and the place is still cranking out the same product millions of times a day. Not because each kid is a master burger flipper, not because they're the most intelligent crown in the box, right? But because the process at McDonald's themselves from the top down is so dialed in that it doesn't matter who gets behind the grill. The system itself actually carries the weight, right? Now, your business is not flipping burgers, but the principle is exactly the same. It's if the way that you handle installs, quotes, and follow-ups, that only lives in your head, then you're the system. And that means that your business falls apart the second that you step away, right? So what does a real system look like for an epoxy contractor that wants to scale without losing like their mind? It means that you lock in an installation process. So if you bring on a helper, they know how to prep, mix, and install your way instantly, not theirs. Lead handling gets locked in. So every single call, text, email gets a fast professional response, whether you're on site, whether you're on vacation, no matter what. Your quoting system gets locked in. So that way estimates go out quick and clean with zero guesswork. Your scheduling gets dialed in. So that way jobs stay booked and organized. There's no double bookings. There's no missed appointments. And then your follow-up gets locked in. And that's so that way past clients stay warm. The referrals keep flowing in, the reviews keep coming in, and your pipeline never dries up at the end of the day. Each of these is a gear in the machine. So when one gear is missing, the machine is actually going to sputter out. But when every piece is locked in and oiled, the machine is going to run. And you're going to be, whether you're on the job or not, you're going to be on top of everything, right? And what when you get your systems really dialed in and really tight, you see consistency where, and so do your clients. Every client gets the exact same great experience, and you can focus on providing that experience as the CEO, right? You also start to see efficiency. Jobs move faster with less effort and less mess ups. And then you also end up with freedom. You're not stuck holding every piece together with duct tape and late nights and hand grinders, right? So let's be real. If you're not consistently turning leads into book jobs, nothing else you build really even matters, right? That sales pipeline from the first inquiry to sign contract, that's the lifeblood of your business. It's also where most contractors are bleeding out. So let's fix that next. Let's just make this really simple, right? Your sales pipeline is the path that turns strangers into a book job and paid invoices. For most epoxy contractors, that pipeline is leaking like a busted hose at every single stage. It's a lot of lost money. It's you never got to bid on, It's hours of your life that you'll also never get back, right? So let's look at these leaks, right? The leak number one, when your sales pipeline is out of whack, or if you don't even have one, is that you're going to see a bunch of lost opportunities, where these opportunities are slipping through your fingers, right? And if you're too busy on site to answer the phone, if it takes you 2 days to call a lead back, and if your follow-up system is scribbles on a notepad, or I think some guy named John called me last week, right? Congratulations, you're just handing jobs over to your competition, right? Speed wins at the end of the day. So being the first to respond is the first to book 99% of the time. You can actually look up stats. There's a bunch of research on. So if you're not the first one to reach out to that customer, you're probably the last. And they're already talking to somebody else, you know? Because that you just really don't have follow-up, despite saying that you might have follow-up. At the end of the day, a lot of you guys don't really have follow-up systems. You call them maybe one time, check in with them once, and that's it. And you really got to be doing it closer to like 10 over the course of 3 months. And I know you can confirm with me, confirm with yourself, be honest with yourself, but do you call leads every 4 or 5 times a month for 2 or 3 months? Probably not, right? So, but happens whenever your system is not even set up to follow up, or you don't have any follow-ups, you just quote, and then what happens? Crickets, right? There's no follow-up, there's no check-in, and then there's no deal that actually gets made. And most contractors, they're just sending one estimate and then one follow-up, and then they hope for the best. But the truth is that these leads are not going to chase you. Life happens, they get busy, they forget, and it's not their job to actually even remember that you exist. It's your job to stay in front of them until they're actually ready to buy. If you don't have a system for follow-up, you're leaving money on the table every single week. Another huge leak is just quoting people slow. It's killing your deals before the even gets warm. The calls on a Monday, excited and ready. You finally send the quote a week later after the excitement's gone cold, right? You're not losing jobs because your price was too high. You're losing jobs because you took too long. Slow quoting is killing your momentum as a business. Speed to proposal closes deals. Speed to lead, speed to proposal, speed to close. All of that is what is going to move you. It's speed. I don't know who says it. There's probably a billion people that say it, but money loves speed, right? Another huge leak is just having scheduling chaos. Like it's actually running you, not the other way around. You've got double bookings, you're missing appointments, you're forgetting to follow up all those times that we were talking about, or the classic, let me check my schedule and get back to you. Meanwhile, your competitor with their act together booked the job on the spot. They jumped in their app, scheduled the call, scheduled it so that way they get the reminders. Everybody's good to go right then and there. The amount of guys that hit me up asking me to do that when they were the ones talking to the customers is crazy, because I don't even have that information. It's like call, book the estimate, book an in-person estimate, send them the quote on the in-person. You can send them a quote. You can send them a website link to request a quote, or you could just fill out the details for the quote for them and get that sent to them right away, instead of sending them to a website and making them work harder, right? Just make it easy for these guys, right? So when is just having no-show appointments, because you set the appointment, you show up on time, and then nobody's home, or they gave you the wrong address. So then the solution to that is just sending a reminder, sending out a confirmation. But when you don't send those out, you just wasted gas, you wasted time, and it's a gut punch to your day, right? No-shows aren't just frustrating, they're also preventable, but only if you have the right systems in place. So you need to stop pouring into a bucket that's full of holes. Lost leads, no follow-up, slow quotes, scheduling chaos, and no-shows, right? If you've got all of these holes, you probably need to stop trying to focus on pushing leads into that again. That you're losing jobs. It's not losing jobs because your work's not good. You're losing jobs because the pipeline is broken. I hope that makes sense, right? You're pouring in all of the effort, but that bucket is never going to fill because of all of those holes. But these are all fixable problems. You can actually plug those holes. It's fixable not by working harder, but by building the system that actually stops the leaks, so that every single opportunity that you're paying for, or even just getting through organic searches, actually turns into revenue. And that's how you scale up from 10K to 30K to 60K, right? And beyond. You have to shift from chaos to control. This is where you need to actually envision what it looks like to be a CEO. What if your lead showed up, they got responded to instantly, and they booked themselves onto your calendar for an on-site inspection without you even having to lift a finger, right? What if your quotes went out fast? They got automatically followed up on a schedule. And your next job was already lined up before the last one was even done. There's no chasing, no guessing, no hoping that the leads will get back to you, just a steady flow of booked appointments and the opportunity to sign jobs just running like clockwork, right? This is what happens when you stop running your business on memory, guesswork, and hustle, and when you start running it on systems. Here's the real difference. Those leads are going to come in daily. Every inquiry is logged, tracked, and responded to automatically. Appointments get booked without the back and forth. Homeowners actually show up because they were reminded before you even get there. Quotes are getting sent out the same day within 2 minutes, and they're polished, they're consistent. There's no last minute scramble, there's no misquoting. And then the follow-ups are happening on time, even when you're off the clock. You're not stuck chasing leads at 9 p.m. You're not buried under a pile of missed calls and half finished quotes. You're actually in control, right? Does that mean that you're sitting on the beach all day? I mean, not if you want to, but it does mean that you show up where it counts most, where you're meeting serious, high value prospects. You're overseeing installs instead of macromanaging every detail or doing every job yourself, right? And you're also making the calls that grow your business, not just keeping it alive. You know, the stuff, the lead handling, the follow-ups, the quoting, the scheduling, handled, automated, off of your plate. That's what a system looks like. And this is how smart contractors are actually able to scale without losing their minds in the process. It's not about having a big team or a fancy office. It's about finding and building the right machine for your business. And when that machine is working, you're not stuck being the technician and the sales rep and the admin and the scheduler. You're the CEO. You focus on growing the business because the business isn't sucking the life out of you anymore, right? And does it sound too good to be true? Well, I can assure you that it's not. This is exactly how the sharpest, best contractors are playing the game right now. They're using systems and automation to actually compete with bigger companies. And in a lot of cases, they are overachieving. They're winning. And that's because they're faster, they're more responsive, and they're consistent. They have good branding at play. And it's not, again, not because they're working harder, but because they're actually working smarter. So the real question becomes, how do you actually build this kind of system? Especially if you're not a tech person, right? You're just really into tech. Let's go ahead and just break that down step by step for you. No fluff, just the moves that actually fix the leaks, right? So I'd like to introduce you to the automated sales machine. The automated sales machine is, you want to think of this as like a built engine for your business that turns interested people into scheduled jobs with minimal manual effort from you, right? It's not a physical machine, of course. It's a combination of software, processes, and maybe a little bit of delegation that works together to act like an assembly line for your sales process. Each part of this machine should take care of a piece of the sales pipeline that we've talked about and sealing up those leaks and then keeping things moving forward. What does this automated sales machine include? In broad strokes, it covers lead capture and organization, responses to new leads, to actually qualifying those leads. Part of it is streamlined quoting. Another part of that is automating your automated scheduling, where you let those clients book appointments on your calendar without you having to do all the back and forth. It looks like reminders and follow-ups, automatic messages that remind prospects about meetings, and then also tracking and analytics, where you get a dashboard of being able to view your leads and sales, so you always know your numbers. No more guessing how your business is doing, right? So right now, you might have some of these pieces already in place. Maybe you have an estimator, maybe you're using a calendar app, or you have a spreadsheet of leads, right? But the magic happens when you link all of these parts together into one cohesive system. That's when it feels like a machine, where one part triggers the next and the whole thing runs with very, very friction. And here's the beautiful part. Once this machine is up and running, you get to decide where you actually step in. You can choose the high impact moments, like there's inspections, obviously, where you get to personally engage. Maybe you want to personally call every single lead that comes through, or personally do every single final walkthrough with a client. Whether somebody else is doing the floors, you still want to do the final walkthrough. Well, the system will support you by handling the repetitive stuff and notifying everybody like where you want to come in and add those personal touches. It'll fill up to be able to do that. So we're going to walk through each component of the automated sales machine step by step. And as we do, picture how each piece directly addresses the pain points that we've went over, right? This is how you end up trading that daily grind, working on the floors every single day for a business that actually works for you. Are you ready for that? Awesome. So step one is capture every single lead automatically. The first step is ensuring that no lead falls through the crack, right? That means setting up a system to capture every single inquiry in one place automatically. For example, say you have a website or a Facebook page where people can request a quote or contact you. Instead of those inquiries just sitting in your email or worse, getting lost, they should flow into a central lead management system. This could be a CRM or even just a simple app that logs all of your incoming inquiries. The idea is that when someone calls, texts, or emails or fills out a form, their information goes into a database where you can actually track it. So how do you capture phone call leads automatically? One is using a phone system or an app that actually logs calls for you and will even transcribe those voicemails into email. Another way is to use a virtual receptionist or answering service for times that you can't pick up. They can take down the details and those details go straight into your system, right? The key is that every phone number and detail gets recorded. And think of this as like your digital Rolodex, except that it's created for you without you having to do all of the scribble notes on the paper in the middle of a job, right? By capturing leads automatically, you've immediately lost leads whole, right? No more forgetting to call back what's his name from last Tuesday. You'll have that clear list of all the leads that came in so you can respond appropriately. So whatever it looks like, you just want to make sure that you're capturing every single lead automatically, right? Step two is setting up instant responses and follow-ups. We want to address that gap between when a prospect reaches out and when they hear back. So instead of leaving them waiting and wondering, you just want to set up an instant response. This could be an automatic email or a text message that says something like, hey, thanks for contacting Elite Epoxy Coatings. We've the request and we will get right back with you shortly. In the meantime, here's the link to our gallery, our pricing guide, etc. It's just a friendly touch that reassures them that you actually got their message. If the inquiry comes in through a web form, like a Facebook account or actually on your website, an email auto reply is really easy to set up. If it was a text or a call, a quick text back reply can even be automated using certain apps or phones even. Some recognize a missed call and automatically send a text message saying, hey, sorry we missed you. We're on a job right now, but we'll call you back ASAP. That level of responsiveness makes for a strong first impression with these leads, right? And it shows professionalism, it shows attentiveness, and it's all done by a machine. So you don't even have to drop what you're doing. And beyond the very first reply, automating the follow-up can continue to work on that lead too. Let's say that you spoke to the person or you set up an estimate for next week, an in-person estimate, right? You can have the system send them helpful information in the meantime, maybe a what to expect note before your appointment, or a testimonial from a happy customer that you just did, or even tips on choosing epoxy colors, right? These are all typically done via a short email or a very short text sequence, and it keeps the prospect warm and engaged, and you haven't had to remember a thing. It's preset, and it goes out like clockwork, right? And if a lead goes cold, let's say they never scheduled in person, your system can even ping them a few days after. Just say, hey, I was just checking in. I know life gets, but you want to discuss your flooring project still? That gentle kind of actually revive leads that would otherwise end up forgotten and in the lost, uninterested section in your brain, right? So the next thing that you want to do is actually try to pre-qualify and segment your leads. Not every single person who contacts you is going to be ready to buy or even a good fit. Some are just shopping around. Some might have budgets way below what you offer, and some might be looking for a service you don't even provide, right? That's why the next step in the machine is lead qualification. It's figuring out who's who without wasting your time. Qualification can be done a few ways. Our approach, or one approach, is to design your contact form or your initial conversation to include a few key questions, which is how we do things as well. Your form or your contact form, it might say, what type of space do you need the flooring for? When are you hoping to have the project completed? And you can even include down for a range of the budget. These asks act as fillers. So let's say that they say you're not looking to get the project done for 3 months. Well, if that's a lot, excuse me, that's a lot different than someone saying, done this weekend. The person who says that they want it done this weekend is probably going to move a lot faster and probably is a lot closer to buying than the person that's ready to do it in 3 months, right? So when you ask these questions, you can kind of get a feel for where the lead is without really even having to talk to them. And you do talk to them based on their answers, then you can make that decision on if it's a lead that you want to pursue further, right? If selects, I'm just browsing, I'm not sure when, or like you said, if they have a really low budget, they might need more nurturing or information before they're going to be really interested in investing in your services, or before you're going to be willing to invest a lot of time in a site visit. Another approach is just to use a quick follow-up call, which could be done by you or an assistant to gather these details. But even that can be structured as a systematic script, so that every single lead is asked the same things and you capture all the info that you need. And again, the system is doing the same thing, right? So that's what this is you want that script that's using, getting these details, and that you want to get them the same way, same, try to set the process up to be the same. That is how you actually scale. Some more advanced setups have a survey or questionnaires that'll actually email out, and they'll actually filter out the leads, and they'll disqualify the lead or give information. It'll also automatically segment the leads into categories like hot lead, they're soon, or warm lead, interested, but they need some follow-up, or cold, they were just researching, right? And this way, you can focus your personal attention on the hot ones and let the automated system nurture and keep the warm leads engaged, right? By pre-qualifying, you're not driving all over town giving quotes to people who aren't even serious. You're actually prioritizing effectively, right? Step number 4 is going to be consistent quoting. Now comes one of the biggest game changers, right? Speeding up your quote process while keeping it professional and consistent. To do this, you're going to need to create a quoting system. This might involve using software where you have templates for different types of jobs. For example, you might have a template for a standard 2-car garage floor that already has a base price, the typical materials, and a standard description of the work, right? And then you just adjust specifics like the square footage or any custom add-ons. And with a few clicks, you've actually got a polished quote ready to send out to your leads. And even without fancy software, you can templatize your quotes as well. It could be like a simple Word document or PDF where you fill in the blanks. The key is that you're not starting from scratch each time. You're not scratching your head thinking, what should I write for this one? You have an actual repeatable process, every single lead, every single quote. And guess what? You can also integrate this with your automated systems too. Some CRMs will actually let you generate and send the quotes right from the lead's record. And that means that the client's info autofills, and just with one click, you email it to them, right? It's not is it fast, but everything is actually being tracked. And you can see in your system, quote sent January 10th. Some systems will even notify you when the client opens the quote. Now, it's nice to know they looked at it, right? But by making quoting faster, you can actually keep up that momentum that we talk about. And then the client's like, wow, that was quick. And then they see you as on the ball. They see you as professional, and they see that. And because you're using the templates, your quotes are actually going to be consistent in pricing and in them as well. And then that consistency over time actually builds trust, but it also exposes bottlenecks in the business. If you're quoting and you have a consistent process, and let's say you change your prices really high, you're going to see that reflection in the process and where it breaks down, right? But if you're just doing whatever, you're always going to be living in chaos. And so the more become, the better that you can get at analyzing what is actually converting your leads, right? Another step is doing the automatic scheduling, right? So that way you don't have any more back and forth phone tag to lock down an appointment. With automatic scheduling, you actually let technology do the heavy lifting. And here's how that might work. You might use like an online tool like Calendly, Acuity, and there's many others where you set your availability for site visits or calls. You might say like, okay, I can commence Tuesday and Thursday afternoons and maybe Saturday mornings. And those slots are available for booking. And then when a client's ready to schedule, they just jump on that link, they click and see your available openings, and they pick the one that works best for them, and then boom, it's booked, and then add it to your calendar, right? They get an email, maybe a text with all of those details, and then you get a notification saying that in-person estimate with Jane Doe is scheduled for Thursday at 2 at Main Street, right? And then this actually eliminates the scheduling chaos. You won't be double booked because the system won't allow for 2 people to take the same slot. You won't forget to write it down because it's automatically on your calendar with all of the details. And the client feels in control because they can choose a time that works best for them without the play phone tag, right? Plus, if you ever need to adjust your availability, say you hire a new estimator or you end up being able to free up more of your time, you just update the calendar settings. No need to call 10 people to actually rearrange everything. The system will only show what's open at that point in time, right? And you remember those no-shows that we all hate, right? Automated reminders drastically reduces those. Your scheduling system can send out automatic reminders to clients about their appointments. It should be able to do that. And typically you'd set up a reminder that's, 24 hours, maybe 2 hours before the meeting. And those can go out via email and text, and they're usually pretty customizable. A message that it just jogs their memory, but it also is going to prompt them to confirm or to just reschedule. And if they confirm, great, you know that's going to be there, right? But if they ask to reschedule, you at least found out before you drove all the way there and found an empty house. And then you can offer them a new slot. And the system can even handle sending them out a link to pick a new time, right? With those reminders in place, you'll find that your appointment attendance rate will actually skyrocket. People appreciate the heads up. They like the reminders, and it adds to that professional image, and it helps you close more jobs when you show up more professional, right? It shows that you run a tight ship and that you value everybody's time. Awesome. So say that you did the estimate, you sent the quote, and now you're in that waiting period, right? Instead of crossing your fingers that the client calls you back, your automated sales machine is already on the job. This step is about nurturing the leads until they make a decision. And even after that, if they haven't said no outright, right? What does nurturing look like? It can be a series of short, helpful communications, like just a day after sending the quote, an automatic email that goes out that just says, hey, I want to make sure you got it. 3 days later, maybe a text saying, hey, I've got a spot for you. And then a week later, another email that says, sometimes folks have questions about, the maintenance. Sometimes it's the price. If anything's holding you back, just let me know. The idea is that you're staying top of mind. You're providing value. You're addressing their doubts, like price, without them having to ask. And it's all pre-written and automated. So you're not manually having to type these out each and every time, right? And you can set a limit to this follow-up sequence. Maybe it goes out for 2 weeks, or maybe it lasts a month. If by the end they haven't responded at all, you might have the system mark them as inactive for now, though you could still keep lists for future marketing, like a seasonal promotion, right? You never know. They might come back later the month or in a few more months. For those that do not engage or reply at any point, you or someone on your team can jump in and personally handle the conversation from there. Give them a call, something like that. The automation is there to do the heavy lifting, but when a client is ready to talk, you'll be there, fresh and not frazzled, not living in all of this chaos, because you didn't have to remember all of those touch points yourself, right? Also, for the leads that say not right now or maybe in a few months, you can have a longer term nurture track, like maybe a quarterly check-in, or sending them useful content like blogs every so often, right? This way that when they are ready, they do come to you and not else, because they've seen all of your stuff consistently and now they're finally ready, right? And the final piece of this machine is having visibility into your sales process. All of these tools, the CRM, the scheduling app, the email follow-ups, they should give you data that you can look at. As the CEO-minded owner, you'll want to review this regularly too. How many new leads came in this month? What percentage scheduled an estimate? Of those, how many are turning into paying jobs? Where's the biggest drop-off? Maybe you discover that lots of people are scheduling estimates, but only a smaller portion actually book jobs with you, right? That might tell you something about your quoting or your follow-up processes that you can tweak. Or you notice that when you respond within an hour, your close rate is much higher than when you respond after 24 hours. That's all powerful information, right? And it quantifies why speed matters, and it motivates you to keep that quick response. Tracking also lets you see the return on investment of this whole system. You might find that by using the automated sales machine, you're now booking, let's say, 15 jobs a month instead of 10. And you're doing it while working fewer hours on the grind, right? When you see the numbers, it actually becomes real to you. It's no longer just about things feel a bit smoother. You can actually point to metrics like revenue growth, conversion rate, or hours saved. Refinement is the ongoing part. As you gather the data, you can tweak your systems. Maybe you notice that a lot of people ask the same questions during the estimates, and you can add that answer to your pre-meeting email or FAQ section. Or maybe there's a lot of leads that are coming in from Facebook, but they're not closing. Perhaps those leads need a different approach, or maybe you need to adjust your marketing. right? This continuous cycle is what any big business does with their sales funnel. And there's no reason why a savvy epoxy contractor like you can't do the same, right? You've now seen each component of the automated sales system and how it directly tackles the pain points that we had discussed earlier. The lead capture, it addresses lost leads. The instant response and nurturing addresses your follow-up leaks. Fast quoting keeps that momentum going. Automated scheduling and reminders handle the calendar chaos and no-shows that you experience. And tracking gives you the CEO level insight to actually steer the ship, right? It's a lot to take in, especially if you've been doing things the old school, the technician, the installer way. But don't worry, you don't need to implement all of this overnight. The idea is to start building it piece by piece. Even one or two of these steps actually can make a huge difference. And once the full machine is actually in place, you'll wonder how you ever even lived without it, right? So maybe you're wondering, is setting all this up even really worth the effort? The short answer is yes. It's worth every damn penny, right? Because this isn't about adding more to your plate. It's about building a system that finally takes the weight off of your shoulders while putting more money in your pockets too. Let's break down what actually happens when you automate your sales pipeline and tighten up the processes, right? You're going to see higher close rate without needing more leads. When you respond faster, when you follow up consistently, when your quoting is quick and clean, you're going to close more of the leads you're already getting. If you were converting 1 out of 5 before at like 20%, you can easily bump that up to 2 or 3 or even 3 out of 5, which is 40% to 60%, just by plugging those few, right? That's double, triple the revenue that you are experiencing, and that's with the exact same number of leads. Not more ads, not more hustle, just fewer opportunities that you're actually letting slip through the cracks, right? You'll also see hours back in your week and sanity back in your life. Think about how much time you spend chasing down leads, how much time you spend playing phone tag, how much time you spend sending quotes, how much time do you spend juggling your calendar and trying to schedule things. Now imagine cutting that time in half, or even better. Let's say save just 5 hours a week. That's 250 hours a year, right? 6 extra weeks of your life that's just back in your control. And you can use that time however you want, to do more jobs, to do more marketing, to get better at sales, to spend more time with your family, or hell, even just to get more rest, right? You also have a steadier pipeline, even in the slower seasons. When you handles the follow-ups and it's keeping your leads warm, your slow season stops being so slow. You're not scrambling just to fill your calendar because you're already relatively booked if it's a slow season. If it's not a slow season, you're already booked because the machine isn't letting your leads just disappear and leak out the boat, right? I've seen contractors go 20%, 50%, and even revenue in a year. And it not from getting more leads. It's from finally closing the ones that they were just losing before. Plus, with the system, you also look more professional because you are more professional. Speed, it actually builds trust. Organization builds credibility in the customer's eyes. And when your process is sharp, you've got fast quotes, smooth scheduling, and real follow-up, the clients feel it. That means that you'll see more yeses. That means you'll get more 5-star reviews. And that means you'll get more referrals. You stop looking like the just another guy, and you become the obvious choice, and you become your customers will be willing to refer you, right? You'll also see fewer mistakes and a lot less scrambling. There's going to be no more missed opportunities, no more forgotten follow-ups, no more, oops, I'm sorry, I meant to call you last week. When the system handles the reminders and the tracking, you stop bleeding trust before the job even starts. And with fewer screw-ups, you'll end up with more money staying in your pockets where it actually belongs, right? And the big capstone of all of this is that the data makes you smarter, not just busier. You're not going to guess what's working anymore. You'll actually know how many leads came in, how many quotes went out, how many deals are closed, and where things are actually falling apart and leaking. You'll be able to see patterns. You'll spot those bottlenecks, and you'll be able to fix them because now you can actually see them. And that's what gives you real control, and that's how you actually scale. So what does this look like on paper? Let's say that you get 10 leads a month, right? Without systems, you maybe follow up with 6, and then you close 2 of those jobs. Now, those same 10 leads all get followed up with. You're actually seriously talking to 8 of them, and then you close 4. So if your average job is, what, $3,000 a month, you just went from closing 2 jobs and making $6,000 a month to $12,000 a month, from $72K a year to $144K a year, right? And that's without spending a dime more on ads or without extra Any extra, it's just purely from working smarter, not harder. But forget the math for a second. It's worth it to know that every single lead is handled, every single quote is being sent, every single follow-up is done, and that your calendar is locked and loaded. Just that alone is worth it to know, right? What's it worth to actually shut off your phone for the weekend and not worry about leaving money on the table? What's it worth to stop guessing about what's going on in your business and if your marketing is working or not? And what's it to start feeling in control? That's the real return on investment. More money, more time, and less stress, right? You're not just building a business that makes you money, you're building a business that gives you your life back. And the best part, you don't have to overhaul everything tomorrow. This system, it can help piece by piece. One leak can be plugged at a time, but even just one or two of these moves, it's a game changer. So let's talk about where you start, right? Where exactly is your business leaking, and how do you go about discovering where your business is leaking and identifying these leaks, right? Whenever I start working with a new contractor, I don't jump straight into fixes. We start with the discovery conversation. Why? Because throwing tools at a problem before you know where the real leaks are is how you actually stay stuck. The first step is like a diagnostic checkup through your business. It shows us where the biggest holes are in your pipeline and exactly where the money's leaking out. These are the same questions I'd ask if we were on a call right now. So ask yourself these honestly as you read through these. If some of the answers sting a little, that's actually a good sign. That means that you're getting to the root of the problem here, right? So what are some key questions that'll tell you where the bottleneck is? One of those is, how many leads are you getting each month? And how many are turning into paying jobs? If you don't know these numbers off the top of your head, that's the first problem. How fast are you responding to new inquiries? Same day doesn't count it. All right. Speed wins. Remember, speed, money loves speed. If it's more than an hour or two, you're definitely losing deals. Do you have a set process for following up after you send a quote? If your plan is, I wait and hope they call me back, you don't have a process. You're leaving sales on the table, actually. How long does it take for you to send out a quote after seeing the job? If it's days, or when I get time, or when you leave or get back home, you're killing your own momentum. You need to be sending them the quote in person while you're in person with them, right? How are you actually scheduling appointments right now? An actual system, or a messy back and forth of scramble of text messages and calls that makes you look unorganized? Which one? How often do no-shows and last-minute cancellations happen? Frequent no-shows means your confirmation and reminder game is weak or just non-existent. And to be fair, people still might no-show or cancel on you, but you need to make sure that you actually have these in place to avoid it if they are going to cancel because they needed a reminder to be able to tell you. Sometimes their plans change, and when you text them, you're giving them the space to change that plan, right? So like I said, sometimes you can't avoid it, but you actually need to have those things in place. And are you keeping a database of leads and past customers? If your system is a mix of text, emails, and your memory, you really don't have a database or a system at all, right? And if you had to double your workload next week or step away from a few days, what would break first? Where does your business crack under pressure? That's your weakest link right there. The hard truth is that most contractors I talk to know that these are all problems, but they've been getting by long enough to ignore them until they hit the wall, and until the jobs slow up, or the missed leads pile up, or the stress finally catches up. This checkup isn't here to make you feel bad. It's here to actually shine a light on what's really been holding you back, so that way we can actually fix it. And when I talk to contractors through this process, the light bulbs start going off. They're like, oh, I'm only following up once on my quotes, if at all. I've got no system at all for tracking leads. It's just text and scraps of paper. Or I take way too long to get quotes sent out, and I know I'm losing jobs because of it. It takes you from that constant background feeling of I'm overwhelmed to, oh, here's actually where the real problem is. And once you can see it, then you can fix it, right? So again, the play here is just plug one leak at a time. You don't have to overhaul your whole business overnight. It starts with the biggest leak. Maybe it's setting up an auto reply so that lead stops slipping through the cracks. Maybe it's finally getting your quoting process out of your head and into a template. Or maybe it's automating your scheduling so you're not wasting hours playing phone tag and missing stuff, right? Even just one of these fixes is going to make a noticeable difference in your business. Step by step, leak by leak, That's how you stop the bleeding and start building the machine. The result is that your business stops feeling like a daily grind. It starts running like a system. The pipeline starts to fill up, the stress starts to drop, and you actually start to get to focus on growing, not just surviving. And you've got the skill. Now it's just time to actually build the business that deserves it, right? By now, you know the truth. Being great at the work is not enough. The real win comes from you when you stop being the one man band, right? And you start running your business like the CEO it needs. That doesn't happen by accident. It happens when you make the decision to fix what's broken. So here's the choice that's in front of you right now, right? Stay where you're at, stay stuck in the grind, juggling leads, juggling quotes and chaos, or step up, build the systems and put the right pieces in place, right? Free yourself to actually grow the business, not just survive in it, not just work in it, not just have a job, right? Nothing changes if nothing changes. A year from now, you could still be saying, I just need to catch up, or I'm too busy to fix this right now. Or a year from now, your pipeline could be full, your follow-ups could be handled, and your calendar could be booked solid for months out with your weekends still free. The only difference, what you choose to do right now, right? Are you ready to break out of the technician trap? If you're serious about turning this vision into reality, I'm going to invite you to take the fastest route. And that's just to book a strategy call with me, right? There's no pressure, no hard sell, just a conversation about where your business is actually leaking and how we can help you patch those holes, help you build the machine, and then finally put the grind on autopilot. I'll walk you through the process. I'll help you spot the gaps, and then we'll map out exactly what needs to happen next. Picture this: 6 months from today, your phone's not blowing up while you're trying to spend time with your family, your jobs are booked, your follow-ups are handled, and you're running the business, not the other way around, right? You've already proven that you're the master of your craft. Now it's time to become the master of your business. Control, freedom, and growth. That's all on the table, but the next move is yours.